Welcome back to another episode of the Hobby Chop Podcast. You got me, Big Ken. We've got Tyler and Zip in the house. Fellas, how we doing tonight?
We're doing
Doing
burning
well.
money in this hobby, right?
There's what?
I said just burning money in this hobby, right?
That's okay. The hobby can kick my butt for a while. The Wolves are going to beat the Lakers. Jordan's NBA playoff bracket's going to be toast. Mine's going to look really good.
Yeah, right. You know what? My boy is tearing it up though, isn't he?
He is tearing it up.
He is. Tyler, I forget, who did you have in the West? That's like
Golden State and the Nuggets in the finals is what I had.
okay. So was it 2-2 Nuggets Clippers?
Nuggets Clippers, and I had the Wolves beating the Lakers.
I thought you had the Wolves beating the Lakers.
Yeah.
That I did not see that one. So
yeah,
that's for sure.
But yeah,
so
interesting week. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah,
for sure.
We have a ton of stuff going on. I want to start out. I just want to touch a little bit on the draft, the NFL draft, because there was a bit of a bet made that we have a clear winner in the bet. So Jordan, and I have to say, I agreed with you. Yeah. I thought it was going to be one of those drafts where everybody, they lost their minds in the first round and they were going to be randomly drafting quarterbacks, and it was going to, they were going to look back on it and say, "Oh my God, what did I do?" Right? But only two quarterbacks went.
Right. And you know what's crazy is I think my bet was fine if there wasn't this collusion on Shedeur Sanders from the NFL to drop him to the 5th round, because like I don't know. I'll tell you what, the third person I was worried about getting drafted in the 1st round wasn't Shedeur. like you know what I'm saying? Like I was like, oh, it's gonna be Ward and Shedeur, some point, and then I think Dart will be a flyer, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where like they're never logical, but at some point, like logic has to come in from evaluation, and I guess that's the hill that I kind of chose to die on. I guess somewhat be right on was the setup at the top of the draft to me going in was very, it was different. There was one team that was absolutely desperate for a QB, and nobody else was super desperate, right? The other teams that really need quarterbacks and really probably, I mean, the Giants clearly weren't going to use a 3rd overall pick, and the other teams that really needed QBs in my mind, which were the Saints, the Colts, and the Steelers, are all teams that don't take those kind of shots typically, especially the Saints and the Steelers. And the Colts were dead set on taking a tight end. Thank the Lord, the best one fell to my Colts. I was quite elated as I sat there and watched the 1st round. Thank you, the Bears.
Yeah, what happened? You just disappeared after that? You're like, all right, my Colts got the. All right, I'm done.
No reason to watch anymore.
Pretty much, I was like, yeah. I mean, at that point, the Colts get Tyler Warren. Nobody's taking a QB. I tuned back in for when the Steelers drafted. They didn't take a QB. I said, okay, I'm good. The Giants will do what they need to do. And, and it's just one of those things. I do want to give a shout out because one of my friends, Austin, his son, Jordan Watkins, was taken at the end of the 5th round by the 49ers. So that was a really nice Saturday thing I got to see.
That's awesome.
Kid that I've known for a little while, and he's a good kid, and he's going to get a chance to catch on. So I'll be a collector.
I thought like the most impressive thing of the draft was what the Browns did with the 2nd overall pick.
I agree. I mean, it was what looks to be probably a pretty good move by Browns, but it's a good move for the Jaguars too, right? Like I think they said it well on the coverage. There's, they had 2 needs, cornerback and wide receiver, and they kind of addressed both of them in one player, right? Like they're gonna let him play both ways.
I just think on top of all of it, getting the first for next year too. Like
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
You
the
think the
Jaguars gave up a ton.
Jags are not going to be good again. It's going to be a high pick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think the Jags will be better than they were.
it's
They're
been
going
the
to be
story the
better
last
than
2 or
a
3
top
years with
5
them.
pick.
It's been the story with them the last 2 or 3 years.
Does Ken have a bunch of T-Law he's holding on to? He's just hoping.
No. In fact, you should see how many messages I got when that trade happened. Everybody's like, T-Law's a buy, T-Law's a buy, right? I said, I don't think so. But, the hobby may think so, right? They people who are holding T-Law cards are going to say, wow, they're worth more now because, what happened in the draft. But I don't think they're worth any more than they were before the draft.
I would go to I would go to venture that the Browns come out on top for that trade long term, which is a scary thing to say. But
I mean, anytime you get that kind of haul and picks back, for sure. And I mean,
they got Mason Graham still. I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, they got one of the better players. Still got one of the better players in the draft, and especially in a draft when it was a run on the O line and the D line, right?
Yep.
So it was a.
Look what the Bears did with their haul of picks, right? When they made that trade to the Panthers, and that just finished this season. So,
they got Lovelace, right? He went before
Loveland.
Loveland. Lovelace. That's Lovelace. You know who that is? That's
yeah. It's a family show.
Yeah. So you don't know who Lovelace is. Lovelace is a penguin from Happy Feet, Ken. So I don't know what you're talking about, family show. I wasn't going anywhere. It's Happy Feet. It's the penguin that has the soda can ring around its neck that gets caught. That's Lovelace. But anyways. No idea what you were talking about.
See, the 50+ crowd is sitting there laughing, listening to this right now.
Yeah,
no clue. And the 35 and under are like, what's that dude talking about?
Yeah. No,
I gotta go look this up.
I have a 16-month-old, and he loves Happy Feet, so that's literally what I've been watching. So yeah,
but,
yikes.
To tie it back to the hobby, not a ton for the hobby, right? Like draft wise,
it was who cares? Also, I think it's good for Hunter to go to the Jags because he doesn't have to go be a wide receiver 1 there because they have Brian Thomas. So if he's gonna do this, cornerback and wide receiver thing, at least it's not like he has to shoulder all that burden on offense. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty crazy for someone to try to have to learn an entire NFL offensive and defensive playbook. That just they seem to think he can do it. So that just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm sure he's going to be, 98% offense and maybe just certain, prevent plays and stuff like that. Maybe good hands, prevent things, put him in. I can't see him doing an awful lot. I mean, as the season goes on, he may be involved in more, but I've never played in the NFL, right? But we're listening to all these people say it is like somebody to go two-way in college is one thing, but then to get to the NFL and do it, and it's you're doing it against very talented players, and it takes a lot more out of you per play to run routes or defend routes.
Yeah, I think I'll disagree a little bit there, Ken. I do think that he will play closer to 60-40, 70-30. Because one thing, the NFL game's slower, so it's not near as many plays in the NFL compared to college, right? He had multiple games where he played 115, 120 plays, which is nuts that any human can do that. But I think the thing he's probably better suited on day 1 to be a cornerback, right? He can step in and be an NFL cornerback before he can be a wide receiver. Because he's not he has great physical tools. He's never really been asked to be a great route runner and those type of things. And I think that was the evaluation I think Dion gave of him too, is that he thought he could be an impact cornerback day 1, and it would take him some time at wide receiver. Now, obviously, they're going to try to push the wide receiver piece because he's such a special athlete. But wouldn't surprise me that if he they'll draw up some packages, but it'll be a bigger split than that.
Really quick, if I just hit present here, will it pop up for me? If I could just show something quick. Okay.
Yeah, Ken will let you and it'll pop.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Let me know when it's good. Just really quick. This is Lovelace the Penguin. Just wanted to clarify any of it. This is the Penguin.
Okay.
All right. That was it. That was it for anyone viewing on YouTube. That was all I wanted to show. Just putting that out there.
Are we good with the draft? Did you want to say anything else before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Good. So everything's going to tie together today, but I just want to start. We just want to start out.
Actually, with the draft, one more thing, and I really wanted to ask you guys. I apologize. That's super late. Will Howard on the Steelers, right? Is that sneaky?
I think it's a little sneaky. I think it's a win-win for the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
Like big kid, a lot of physical tools. Nobody knows what to think about him because of the kind of offenses he ran. And he didn't get a lot of the credit at Ohio State because he had all the weapons around him. But
guess what? He has some good weapons in Pittsburgh too now.
Yeah, that is sneaky. The others, well, before we do move on, the other sneaky one is why am I drawing a blank on his name? The Patriots' second round pick, the running back out of Ohio State.
Did they get Judkins or Henderson?
Henderson.
Okay.
Low key, in an offensive rookie of the year candidate.
Okay.
Because I think he'll play all three downs. He's really, really good in pass protection. So that's going to keep him on the field.
In a weird draft year, I don't hate that as a prediction. Like
there was a lot of experts that said he's one of the best pass protecting running backs that they've ever evaluated. Right? And if you think about the Patriots, you think about Mike Vrabel, that kind of stuff is going to keep you on the field. And so he's going to get opportunities. Right? Vrabel's going to give him opportunities as well, just naturally in the style of system he's going to run. Just an early thought.
Yeah, they'll actually have someone besides Antonio Gibson to give the ball to when Ramondre starts fumbling again. Because I mean, fantasy football, I just remember this week in, week out. I'm like, is Ramondre playing or not? Or he got like benched for like 5 plays and then he played like all the stats. Just weird stuff. So like for them to have another, the Pats are exciting. I think they're exciting.
Yeah. And just to go back to Will Howard for a minute, you're picking a quarterback in the 6th round, right? You're definitely taking a flyer on him. And, everybody wants to find their Brock Purdy, right? Every team would love to do that. But, if he can go, good pass protection, good people to throw, talented receivers to throw the ball to, he could do better than most that are in, not as good a situation, that would have more talent, but we know what it looks like when quarterbacks are running for their life out there, or when receivers are dropping balls and things like that. So, why not use those later picks to try to, find a needle in a haystack?
Also, I would say that late of a pick, to me, just especially with Shedeur being there so often, makes me think Aaron Rodgers will be there.
I would assume so.
So if that's the case, then Will Howard gets to sit a year behind him. Even if he doesn't play this year, or if Rodgers gets hurt, there's a lot of upside there, I think. So I don't know. That was intriguing to me. Milroe and see, you know what? As we were about to go off the draft, actually all the quarterbacks, well, not all, but some are kind of interesting. Milroe, he's going to be what? Because they got rid of Howell, so he's second string in Seattle off the bat.
Never will start an NFL game.
You don't think so?
Never.
Just takes an injury. I mean, because that's the thing.
Well, no, he's going to be third string. Drew Lock is the backup.
Lock? Oh, I didn't even realize
they re-signed Lock. Lock's the backup. Okay. He just can't throw the ball to me, right? Anytime Alabama played anybody who could shut him down the run, they lost. So he's an athlete. I could see him end up being something else.
Third round's pretty high for a third string QB, though, right?
I think they're taking a chance on an athlete.
Okay.
Like, I could see that being a little Taysom Hill-esque.
Okay.
Or something like that, right? Like, he's such a special athlete and so fast. Like, he's one of the fastest 5 players in the draft. So, like, how do you not like? So I get it. Like, it's a gamble on just.
I mean, you put him in a wildcat situation, just drop him in and let him run.
Yeah, Taysom Hill's made a hell of a career and made a lot of tens of millions of dollars doing gadget stuff.
And then, actually, your boy, was it Tyler Shug?
Yeah, to the Saints.
He might just start, right?
Yeah, because Carr may not play the entire season, so he may walk into, a pretty decent situation with decent weapons, and he's 25 years old. Again, like I said, he was Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon, so like the dude's got plenty of plays under his belt, right? It's not Anthony Richardson who started like 8 games.
Yeah, so like, it's almost like at first glance, it's like, oh, it's not really hobby significant, but like, you never know. Like, a couple guys turn out, a couple injuries happen. Like, you never know. Yeah. And that's just QBs. Like, there's some decent skill players too, but
I think the best thing from a hobby perspective, in my opinion, is there will be very little hype for this class as as the season starts from a hobby perspective, and then it'll be interesting to who are those 2, 3, 4 players who end up with some hobby hype. Yeah, because there are going to be some situations that could create it. Yep. And, it literally could be a situation where some of the most expensive rookie cards are non-QBs.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're going to watch, as we go through training camps, as we head into the summer, moves that are made between teams and players and things like that are also going to tell the tale of how the team feels about said player, right, that they drafted, whether they're going to a practice squad or they're going to be a second or third round. Because, and I keep bringing Brock Purdy up, right, but I think he was the third string on that team, and everybody got hurt by process of elimination, right? He ended up starting. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we move closer. Teams are going to, if you see a team going out and picking up a quarterback or something to bring them in as a backup, then they don't have much faith immediately in the kid they just drafted. And if they don't, and they start naming them like a second string or something like that, it's also going to, before the cards, I guess the point I'm getting at, before the cards actually start hitting the market, we're going to know kind of how the team feels about their prospect that they just drafted.
And then, Tyler, I don't know like your depth of this, but Ken, I know probably for you and me, I just think about this more so fantasy than cards with a draft like this. So really intrigued by that, especially a ton of good running backs.
Yeah, there was a ton of good running backs last year too. I mean, I know there's more talent this year, but there was still a lot of running back. I think, it's, and if you play fantasy is much different than the hobby.
Yeah,
I mean, I've learned so much about players by evaluating them for fantasy teams that gives me the idea whether I can prospect on them or not. To go out, because I know. I know pretty early on if they're going to be a starter and what kind of workload they're going to have and who they have throwing the ball to or who they're throwing the ball to or who the linemen are, things like that, just because it's studying fantasy, for fantasy. So it gives me a nice edge in the hobby of knowing, what players to prospect on.
Yeah, I think from a fantasy perspective, guys will have immediate impact. Genty, Travis Hunter, Tyler Warren,
Loveland.
Loveland. I don't know, right? Loveland's interesting. You got Colt Kmet, right? And Loveland only caught like 50-some passes in his entire college career. Like, people are enamored by the talent of that. So that's interesting.
Didn't I hear he had like 4, this, it was like whatever, how many touchdowns it was, like 9 catches for 9 touchdowns or something.
It's very awkward that way, but Henderson, I think, will be relevant. And then I think the Packers, Matthew Golden, will be very relevant for them. And then interesting, I think that Emeka Buka might be sneaky fantasy relevant early on because he's going to be in a crowded wide receiver room in Tampa, but he fits the one thing that they don't have as a wide receiver. And the weird thing is he's Ohio State's all-time leading receiver, and look at who he's played with. He's never been the number one receiver, and he's their all-time leading receiver.
I'm excited. It's funny. I was waiting for you to mention Omarion Hampton, because that's who I'm excited for. I'm really excited for him in the Chargers line.
What pick in the draft do you have?
For ours. Yeah. No, well, yeah. I think I'm excited for him. I think he's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Especially with that line the Chargers have. So, and Dobbins and Gus Edwards they're gone. I mean, they signed Najee, right?
Yes.
Even more reason to like Hampton because they signed Najee.
Yeah,
Najee is not a roadblock. So yeah, that's kind of who I'm pretty excited
about. That's a good call. The offense is going to center around it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Herbert's not any good, so that's fine. Somebody's got to do things.
All right, let's move on. So, like I started to say earlier, a lot of this is going to tie in, but Jordan, you had a couple of cards go to auction, a couple big cards go to auction that kind of sold for less than, what you were expecting. And I think what most of us were expecting those cards to sell for. So briefly just describe the two cards, what they sold for, and then we'll move on to the actual.
The first card was a True Gold Cooper Flag first auto. Let me pull up the exact number that it sold for. But as I'm pulling it up, the second card was a Gold Fearless Caitlin Clark. The insert out of 10, which the one that sold before it did $3,050, and this one did $1,694. And then the Cooper Flag. Let me scroll here. The most recent sale is like a week or like 10 days ago. Did $4,027. And what did mine do? Sorry guys. Roughly did like 25 and some 2,500 and some change. So
both of them are down significantly.
Yeah.
Just over a 2-week period.
Yep.
And one of the things I want to talk about today is thoughts on cards selling under value. So I do a lot of, I'm looking at cards every day, and certain cards, as we all do, have favorited. And I'm starting to see where a card is, say, and I'm going to make up numbers, is selling for $500, and a week later it's at $400, and a week later it's at $300. And it's like almost as if we wait a few weeks, we can get that card for half or less than half because it's going down. Are these cards, are they undervalued cards? Number one, is it the market? Is it the market? Like we have a little bit of hype and then there's a big drop off. Is it overproduction? Is there just too many of those cards out there? In your case, both of those were golds numbered to a certain number, so it's not like there's any more or is it just that time of year? Is this a time of year, which I always refer to as the hobby dead zone, that people just aren't as excited to spend a lot of money on cards? It's after the football. It's baseball is just getting started. Basketball is in the playoffs. Hockey is in the playoffs. As people kind of like thinking, okay, the National is coming in July. The hobby is going to pick up, because I've spoke to a few people who said, you know what? Yeah, taking a few weeks off. Like it's that time of year where I'd just like to take a few weeks off and reset. I've got all this football, but football is really not selling that well. So I'm just holding on to my product. I don't want to. So just trying to get an idea of like pick, your guys' brains just a little bit of what you think about all this, or am I overthinking all of it?
I don't think you're overthinking it. I think it's interesting, right? Like you think about it being a dead zone, right? That is part of it from what I see, and seems to be somewhat cyclical. And again, it's just kind of my second year back through this cycle, so I don't have that experience to lean back in. But the one thing that I do think is interesting, right, is you have a market in general, and this could be cards or anything like that. It's propped up. There's a propped up portion of the market, and that's the Kaboom, the downtown market, right? That those cards, a lot of money is being spent on that. So there's a lot of money that's in the market, but it's all concentrating to those places because that is the one opportunity for consistent return, because you have repacks that those are very important to, and those people are spending money on those things. And what I've seen is, because that is such steady money and are safer investments because of that propped up portion of the market, there's little to zero risk taking on other cards, in my opinion, right? It's 100% comp dependent, and even then it's hard to get, unless it's a super rare card. It's hard to get to that number, and people just aren't wanting to invest that much of what they have to invest in those places, when they can go make an easy 5 or 10% over here in the KSIT market still, and there's very little risk, and requires less work. And I've seen it in the Discord that I'm in. Those type of cards just don't seem to be moving at the rate that they were, and they become harder to move, in my opinion. The really cheap stuff, sure, that moves because that fills spots and certain items. But if there's not an absolute slam dunk way for them to flip it, and it requires a little extra thought, or comparing like cards, or not very few sales because the card's somewhat rare, which that could have been kind of what comes into play in like Jordan's Cooper Flag auto. Is, yes, there was some great comps out there, but when that next person goes to buy it, what are they willing to push it to?
Yep.
And I think you're starting to see some of that. And that's just my opinion on the state of it in general. My analysis.
I think one of the things I know that we'd seen every year in the hobby, whether it was NBA or NFL, is we all rush out to get the first product that has players in the college uniforms. And as soon as the pro uniforms cards drop, then the market drops out of that, right? So one of the things we saw with Caitlin Clark is that really didn't happen, although the market came down a little bit in her Iowa jersey, right? But for the most part, it's really held strong. I don't think we're going to see that with Cooper Flag, even though he's projected to be the number one pick and he's declared for the draft and everything else. I know we saw it with Wembanyama, right? That people paid really good money for those cards, but then, when his pro uniform cards came out, I think the market dropped considerably on the the draft cards. I don't want to say college cards, but draft cards on his stuff that came out of the Bowman U stuff. Thoughts on the Cooper Flag?
I mean, it's tough when on April 13th, one did $4,027, and then like, you know, just before that, one did $4,000, and then I figured if any of them were to stay like somewhat consistent, it would be like a true gold. I know we talked about Bowman and color and importance and stuff like that. So, you know, at the end of the day, I pulled it, so it's fine. It's just like, I think, yeah, I think that market clearly a little volatile. I guess we could say that at my expense, right? Like,
and I think we talked about this too. I think we have to blame Topps a little bit too for delivering that product way too late. That never gave us a chance to
sure,
open it and get it graded and get it out and you know let that market play out. That those cards came out during the NCAA tournament, and it seems like the market happened so fast.
yeah.
Where the year before those cards came out, I think in January, right? So it gave us a couple months of, you know.
I was just, it's funny you say it. I was just going to say, if I pulled this card in February, I feel like I would have done great.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was, yeah.
Yeah, I think every day you got away from the tournament being over, then the card was taking a little bit of a hit. And again, it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. My opinion is that card doesn't have a slam dunk place in a repack product,
sure,
etc., and those type of things. And when that doesn't exist right now, just in, again, my opinion, my analysis of what I'm seeing, then people do not push on that card, and it can cause situations where the card probably goes for less than what it probably truly is worth and may be worth long term, because they're concerned about how they make the return on it.
Yeah.
And you know, if that was an NBA auto in a Prism product and it had those comps, you would have got very close to exactly what it sold for before, or just under, because they're going to use it and sell it.
Yeah.
Right. Or put it in a product or a repack product, etc. So I think that's a little bit of a deadly combo there. But again, I think it really goes back to, you know, maybe it's the overall economy, some worry there, whatever it is. There's little risk taking or willing to be creative when coming up with a value going on right now.
I've been much more picky with buying collections, like just to piggyback off of that. Like the last few months, I've been just like basically, oh, comp, okay, and then we just run through an entire collection, certain percentage, and I'll take everything, right? But like a really good example of that recently, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too, is the Uptowns are just like dying. like the first three sales of a Saquon Uptown were 700, a grand, and 800. And then like when I looked to comp one, it was 450. And then we hadn't like agreed on anything, but we were just like, I was talking with someone about their collection. Then we went back to it, like, I think it was the next day or 2 days later, and it sold under $300. So I'm just like it's just, you know, where we could value it. It's just like we couldn't find common ground to establish those values, because my thing is like, okay, so I buy this, and then after I get it a day later, it's going to be $150. Like, I don't know if that's real or not, but it's just like, that's what it feels like.
Well, in the Uptowns, I don't think anybody knows, right? They seem to be just popping out. So if Panini's still calling them a case hit, and I don't think anybody believes that at this point.
I pulled the Caleb Williams last week, and when I pulled it, the last comp was 550. I went away over the weekend. I did nothing with the hobby, and I came back. Here it is Monday morning, and I went and looked it up, and I saw prices were as low as 300. There was one sale at 450, and now there's some high 3 sales on it. But it's, I mean, that's down from 550 for sure, right?
And even if it is a case hit, take that away for a second. Let's say it is truly a case hit, regardless of what we believe. I think it's a perfect example of how a case hit that isn't propped up by a very specific repack market can and will perform. just when somebody is just buying it because they want it, or they're going to flip it that way.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like we talked about, maybe it was even last episode, about like, imagine if they actually numbered the downtowns and kabooms, how cheap they would really be. And realistically, it's just this like false like hold up of these. It's an inflation because the value's there is because the demand is there to put them in a repack. Yeah, it's just
It's false. I mean, go back to January, February 2024. You could buy I'll just use it because the card that sticks in my head, a Devontae Adams downtown in a Raiders uniform, like $150 to $175. I bought more than I'll ever want to admit of that particular card for somewhere in that number in February 2024. And a short time later, I was getting 300, 350 for that card like it was nothing. And it didn't make any sense. And again, because nobody's buying them to collect them. You know, maybe some rare. Like I want to go back and buy and build like the 2018 Optic Downtown set or the 2020 Optic Downtown set. Like I want to do that when it was more of a rare card, or like this, or the 2019. That's a really that one to me is really cool with the more prism look to it.
Yeah. Hey, it's only 20 cards.
Right. So like that's something that, you know, might happen with those cards in the long term, but nobody's going to collect the last few years of it. And, you know, Ken, when he was asking the trivia questions last time or the time before, hit right on that.
Yeah. Yep. Should we be buying? Do we think, and this is a question that, you know, I think a lot of thoughts go through my head on a daily basis, but I think to myself, if we're seeing a lot of undervalued cards and cards going down, I know the repackers are probably doing well at these shows, right? Because the you know, if they're good, mostly basing a lot of these off the lower comps. Should we be buying the dips, or should we just be a little cautious? Do we, you know, should we be buying downtown? Should we, you know, if we think they're dipping, should we be buying any of the quarterbacks right now? Do we think that their values are dipping, that they're going to jump back up June, July, August? Or should we be cautious, thinking that maybe it looks like the market's dipping, but that may be the new comps on these cards?
You know, I think you got to buy something, right? Because the Nationals still going to create that market, and as the NFL season starts back up, that market's going to be there. So take advantage of it while you've got it, right? Like it's going to happen. Just don't. There's not going to be. You're going to have to hold it, right? There's probably going to be less quicker flips, which is not how the market's been for 6 months. It's going to go back to a little bit of Ken, when you talked about your strategy going into 2024, right? You know, way back when. I'll be real interesting to see how the NBA market really performs over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, as we get close to this, as we move into the second round. You know, I think that's going to be a little bit telling. Does it do its normal pop, or is that a little more subdued? If that's a little more subdued, then I think there's probably some larger, you know, macroeconomic factors that are pushing into the market. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, it will be pretty cyclical, in my opinion, and you probably should take advantage and buy when you think it's a good deal, especially if it's somebody you think is going to pop.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thought really going into this is I really don't want to buy any of the rookies from this past year. Like, I don't want to put any investments really in the Jaden Daniels, the Bo Nix, things like that. But I'm thinking, you know, the Burrows, right? Mahomes, Herbert, you know, like players like this that, you know, when we look at the draft and we look to see what did they add to the team and what did they do in free agency and what's going on with the coaching, and do we think that, you know, we just need some hype, right? And I think that's just any little bit of hype going into, June, July, August on any of these, any of these quarterbacks on any of these teams could get anyone to jump up at any time. And if there's been a better time to buy, it's probably right now, because I think we're heading into May now, and I think that market is going to start to rise a little bit slowly. My thought, not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I have a feeling that we're in a dip right now, and that I think we're going to start to see things climb up. So if there's somebody you believe in right now, maybe now's a good time to try to grab a few cards that you may want to flip in a few months. I put myself in a break timeout. So back in April, on the 17th, I said I'm not going to do any breaks for 30 days. I was, in breaks probably almost daily or every other day. I got so many packages showing up, so many cards coming in, and I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I just need to take a break and really just go through my, all this inventory, all these cards that are coming in. And I know a number of other people, including you, Tyler, who said, look, I stepped away a little bit of doing that stuff too. So just wanted to ask you your thoughts on stepping back a little bit from that. And Zip, I know you do a lot of breaks too. I don't know where you're at with that, but is this also a time to like step away and rejuvenate, or is it like, yeah, I'm just getting tired of it?
Yeah, I think for me it was, I saw some things. Typically, like you'll see, if you scroll around on Whatnot enough, you're going to find something that kind of agitates you, and it's not something you like that's happening. And I saw a little bit of that, and then then you get into the point where if somebody doesn't ship quickly and it's a card and you actually want to flip it, right? Like you see a good opportunity to get into a break at value. It takes them forever to get the card to you, and then you got 3 comps that really just make the value go away. Things like that. And and then on a different level, then you see stuff like this week where Whatnot allows Grant to be back on Backyard. And when I saw that, I was like, that makes me feel kind of good about that I haven't been supporting Whatnot a little bit. And that's just a personal opinion on that for a minute. But, it's that combination of things, I think, in general. And I just have not been enthused by any wax breaks. So it was strictly the repack piece for me. And I wasn't seeing those opportunities and values. And, it's either go chase downtowns or I can, just spend the money in a different way in the hobby, and have kind of chosen just to, buy other things. Just kind of reallocated those funds. That's really
very similar to that. The wax has been underwhelming, to say the least. I think that's been a big part of it. Like I really like Bowman Chrome U, and I got everything in, and then like it's just like I was really the timing of it really sucked, honestly, because I've said this off. I don't know if I've said it on. I feel like I would have. There's 2 things. The QC was like halfway decent. Could have graded a ton of it, and that would have been fantastic. But that I think, Ken, you could probably attest to that too. Not the case. Pretty poor QC on that product overall. Mm-hmm. And then the timing of it too is just like tough to sell it. And then like it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I still did fine overall if you're going to look at like what I spent and what I got out of it. I mean, I spent less than the Cooper Flag Auto sold for. Okay. So like, there's that, but it's just like, it was like my hobby experience. I like doing several avenues. Like I do like watching my auctions end. Like it's fun for me to, like the thrill of the final seconds. Maybe not so much when it sells for $1,500 less, but it's still fun to watch all those auctions left, end. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then like I also like grading, and it's like methodical, and it's like I'm practicing mindfulness as I'm going through the whole process of grading and doing the whole thing. I enjoy that, and I couldn't really do that too much with the product. So, after that, like I was excited for Optic, and I haven't had my hands on a lot of the Optic, but it seems like the Uptowns have pretty bad QC from things I've read. I don't know how do like the actual like the base cards and the shocks and
I don't think they're very good. I got a bunch that I went through and did not look gradable. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's my disappointment. That's one of the reasons I jumped out of brakes for 30 days. As you know, I was buying a lot of Patriots because, I started out buying the Patriots because I just felt that, that was being in this area, that was going to be the way to go. And then I ended up getting Joe Milton. I ended up picking more more Joe Milton than Drake May. And then, I started building this massive collection of, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can tell you that one of the last breaks I was in, and they pulled a silver Drake May, a red, white, and blue Drake May, and another numbered Drake May. And I was so excited, and the cards came, and they were just horrible. There was I would be lucky if they got 8s. They were probably going to get 7s. And then I thought to myself, you know what? When I really look at the market, I really think Caitlin Clark is the she's the generational talent right now.
And
And
talking about her cards in QC,
yeah, so
they're worse.
They're worse, but you know what? I actually bought a case, and here's a sad story. I bought a case of blasters, and I ripped the whole thing. I had 1 ice prism of hers and 2 base of Caitlin. That was it. That's all that came in the whole. I mean, I got all kinds of other cards in that case, but as far as Caitlin Clark cards, those were the only 3 cards out of 20 blasters.
Wow.
In that case that came out. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just make the investment. I'll buy the case, and hopefully I can hit like a silver prism. I could barely get anything out of those boxes. So that was, and you're right. Then QC is just as bad on the Prism WNBA as it is on the football, the NFL stuff, and but disappointment. I mean, that's really kind of what I felt like with all this. And I know how much I like the rip boxes and how much I like the grade. And it's just been a disappointing season because it's a lot of wasteful money when you're buying this and you can't grade them. And you look at the prices when you have to sell the cards raw, and you're barely making any money back of what you put into those boxes. So it's just been disappointing. That's why I said, you know what, I'm a little frustrated. I'm taking 30 days off. I'm going to just to kind of rejuvenate and get ready again. And I know I think we all need a little bit of a break. Right. I think we all, like, I take weekends off, and I talk about this, like I'm going on, get a weekend off. It's a family thing here and there. But I'm pretty much, for my podcast, for this to run, and for my, my solo to run, I have to be involved every single weekend. I have to be out there at shows and doing things to get that content. So it's nice to say, you know what, it's time to take a little break and do a few other things, but not step away from the hobby. Still be part of the hobby. Just change up some of the things I'm doing.
Yeah, because I remember I was setting up with like just as much as you before my son was born. This is the best thing that's happened to me. It's honestly my son being born, and like just like stay away, like go enjoy other aspects of life. The hobby is great, and don't get me wrong, I still thoroughly enjoy it. It's just like, I think we see a lot of people in the hobby have like way too much of like their significance hinge on it. It's not judgment. I just think it's like where, for whatever reasons, people all have their own, but I just think it's important to like make sure there's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's, for me, it's been all, just kind of picking and choosing, and not oversaturating myself, from if it comes to buying cards, selling cards, or doing that, and I've slowed down on local shows and kind of picking my battles more, and taking a strategy to going in, for lack of better words, this battle. This is what my inventory. This is what I'm taking, and then kind of reset and go after it again. And that's kind of going to be my approach for the next couple of months, until the market kind of, gets back to a place where we can move and, as quickly.
It won't be long either, Tyler. I'm with you, dude, 100%. And I don't think it will be long. I really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's to show up at shows and just put up a buying sign right now.
Yeah.
Throw a few cards in the case, because I don't think the values of the cards are in a great place right now. When I just got an order back from PSA and I'm going through the cards, I'm like, oh, put that away, put that aside, and I'm amazed how, like, even the PSA 10s, how inexpensive they are right now compared to where they were and where I think they should be. So I think, I mean, maybe better off just setting up and doing a lot more buying right now, because I just think it's a buying season.
Ken, I think if you can buy and hold the right stuff, you'll do just fine.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the questions.
Sweet. Not a ton this week, but I think we have some good ones. First is from Tom G on IG. I think you guys, can definitely be able to answer this better. I don't really have too much of a thought on it, because I don't know about it too much. Actually, I take that back. I'll just say the question. Panini Instant 2025 NFL Draft Night cards. Good flip opportunity or avoid?
For me personally, I'm going to avoid. I think the surprise last year was draft night, was the WNBA, how well the Caitlin Clark cards sold out of there. But since then, I see some of the numbers of some of these draft night cards and some of these even. I think there's going to be it's going to be astronomical. I think the numbers are going to be astronomical, and I don't know how well the football buyers are going to have interest as the WNBA buyers had interest in the WNBA version of those cards. Yeah. I have a feeling people are going to be like, oh yeah, that's, it was like an insert, or it was, we expect a lot more. I mean, when we got National Treasures and we got all these nice, with the football, nobody knew what to expect with the WNBA. And when those cards came out, they all did very well. Now the only one that still does well is Caitlin Clark's card. The rest really don't do well at all.
Yeah, for me, I think it's probably just a quick avoid.
Yep.
And maybe if I'm going anywhere, maybe a Cam Ward card to try to move quickly, because I think those cards really only crush in a quarterback, right, with the right kind of hype. And that's probably the only one as you have going into the summer, and you think about the National that might have a little bit of traction.
Yeah.
Would be something with Cam Ward, and then I would probably stick towards, if I could get my hands on one of the instant autos or something like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the only kind of play I could think of in recent years was actually a huge one. It was 2023. It had Stroud, Young, and who was the other? Oh, Levis. Those were their only licensed autos, right? Were those draft instants, or was that rookie premier? I get them confused. But if so, do you know what I'm talking about?
Were they in the Bowman U? I thought they were in Bowman U.
Well, professional licensed. Okay. Like Stroud and Young have those instant autos. They're very short printed. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Because like if you can find some like weird thing in the market like that, then obviously that's a huge opportunity regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
But that would be kind of the play, and I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if there's anything like that for this year. So moving on, this is kind of an interesting one because this happens. Alessio Jadice, probably butchered that. I apologize. I'm looking to invest in Dodger prospect Zaire Hope. His Bowman draft first have no autos and are missing the first designation. Will they include first Bowman and autos on a second card? The only thing I know about an instance like this, and it looks like Matt Ryan also commented that, is like, so Jackson Merrill, first off, his first Bowman card isn't even him. It's a different player. But his autos came out after his first designation, and they did not have a first designation. I would assume that Bowman is not going to put a first on it because that would just, defeat the whole purpose. And just like they just missed the boat is what I would assume.
So when you're saying a first designation, it means it's first on the card.
Yeah, literally one ST. Yep, one ST.
Okay.
So like the literal
Yeah.
Yep.
I've never heard it said first. I never heard anybody refer to it like that. That's why.
So I would assume they wouldn't put him there. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would put it there either. Like I'm not a ton plugged into the situation, but I know that like the Jackson Merrill situation, the funny thing probably for me is, as good as the player might be, it probably would push me away from that investment, right? Unless just because of that's a nuance that you might have to deal with down the road that could complicate that market in the future, especially on a market that you're gonna have to wait on, right? Like that's a many year play, not an instant play. So.
Yep. Any thoughts on there, Ken? Or
nope, I'm going.
Alrighty. Last one should be a good one. From Matt Ryan, thoughts on the best rookie auto of a player outside of RPAs? And he put flawless and NT. He said, I was always a fan of the optic on-card auto with the rated rookie designation, especially the rarer parallels such as gold, gold vinyl, black, etc., with Prism and Select being mostly sticker and insert autos not tied to the base set. Optic was always a logical choice to me. I love Optic autos.
I like the on-card autos. I mean, if you could get me something with an auto, not on a sticker, on a card, like, and I don't care where it comes from, like what product it's going to come out of. But I'm just a huge fan of on-card autos.
Yeah, I would definitely an on-card. I think Optic is a great place to go just naturally, right? Because you do have you do have the rated rookie factor and the fact that is a card that people like. A card that I for some reason like is encased. I like encased on-card autos. I think they're super clean. It's a very simple design, but it's a card that I just have found myself enjoying as a nice looking card and a low numbered encased auto. That's probably where I was going. I think Optic is probably the easy answer for value.
Yeah.
I love how they look and being on card, the chromium cards. You don't get that a lot with Panini for those to be on card. So it's nice. If you are a baseball guy, you get that all the time with Topps Chrome and Bowman Chrome and Bowman, and that's great. But for Panini, yeah, it is pretty nice. I guess another like second place, whatever you want. I love the next day autos. They're like super short printed, and as you get older, they're even more short printed, and I like those too. But I mean, I guess for like I know we said Select mostly being inserts. I love the in-flight autos for basketball. That insert set, one that's all about the dunking and stuff like that.
Yeah. So actually, the other one that I would throw out there was Panini 1.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't believe forgot about the great call.
Yeah, Panini 1 for non-RPAs. A lot of non-RP. They have RPAs too, but a lot of really nice on-card autos there.
Defining moments, or what is it?
Timeless moments.
Thank you. Timeless.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the single, because that's one of the few times that Panini actually does great photography, and they match it up with a great auto, because typically the auto is a bold auto on those cards, and they do it for basketball, and because it lends itself to an action photo, and it's great because they actually try to tie it to a significant play or a significant moment in the year. It's not just a timeless moments for the hell of it, right? They're really trying to tie back to something. I think that's one thing Panini got right in that card. In general.
Absolutely agree. Good call.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's all the questions. Look at that. We're on the hour.
We're on the hour, just the way we wanted it.
Wow.
Cutting it back to an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, another great episode. You guys have anything to add before we end?
Yeah, just want to remind everyone, Lovelace, Penguin from Happy Feet. That's all I'd like to add.
Wow.
Ken, you may have to go watch Happy Feet with your grandkids after they watch this episode.
Yeah, I may have to. I just may have to. In fact, when we get off of here, I'm looking to plan another trip down there to go visit again. I may suggest that that movie to watch. All right, so that was it. So this was just one episode combined this week. No solo for me. We have all of us together for the Hobby Chop. I was away on the weekend. Tyler, safe travels to you. I know you're on your way off for business this week.
Yep.
And
flying out early in the morning.
All righty. Safe travels.
Thank you. Y'all take it easy.
Yeah, right, you too. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Fellas, have a good night.
Have a good one.